morning, there was another shooting tragedy at a school in Uvalde, Texas. It was an elementary school where 14 elementary children that we know of so far were killed, along with one teacher. And I just wanted to ask for a moment of silence for our compadres there. Thank you. Thank you for that. School and community session. Is there any public participation? We don't see anyone in the seats. Is there anybody online, Wendy, that has any hand up or anything? No? Okay. Student representative reports. Do we have Isabel and or Lucy on the line? Yay, hello.
So I'll get us started. Last week we had our junior prom.
We can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Now we can.
All set?
Yes.
Okay. So last week we had our junior prom, which was a lot of fun. It was definitely getting sweaty on the dance floor, but that means everyone's having a good time. The food was really good. It took place at Woodwinds in Brantford. And everyone I talked to had a really positive experience, which was just really fun. It was great to be with your grade. Just a fun kind of wrapping up the year event. And then 100% of the people who signed up to go to the prom and attended, which is the first time maybe in the history of junior prom that's happened. So that was really good to see that huge class participation. Additionally, we have UConn exams going on right now. AP Calc just finished. AP Physics is next week starting May 31st, and then Chem has been happening today, and it will continue through tomorrow. And those are 1.5 hour UConn exams that can be put towards college credit. Additionally, we have the National Honor Society induction this Thursday on the bridge. I believe board members are invited to attend, so we'd love to see you there. And before that, we also have the chorus concert tomorrow at 7:30 as a send-off to our seniors. There will be La Salle singing, which is a highly anticipated event. So I'd really recommend going there and cheering on the chorus performers. And then to also go into the sports world, a lot of teams are moving into their postseasons. Some of them are going into SCCs or have already begun their SCCs. So best of luck to the sports teams that are participating in that.
And then just one quick update on that. Boys tennis this evening won SCC finals, and it's super exciting. And they've won it for, I think, 4 years in a row now, at least. And it's a really great finish, or not even finish, I don't think, but great way to wrap up the season for a bunch of their seniors who have been enthusiastic members of the team all throughout high school. Tomorrow is a reward to all hand students for like a competition fundraiser we had. We're all going to have a 1 hour Wellness Wednesday, which will be super nice. Hopefully it'll be sunny and warm and we can spend some time outside. Lately there's on the Wellness Wednesdays, people have been on the track and on like lying all over the turf, sunbathing and in the courtyard, and everyone's having like a nice relaxed time with friends, which is especially good right now when it's starting to get a little bit busy towards the end of the year. And then other fun news, the band is performing in the Memorial Day Parade as always on Monday. And we're all super excited. So like I'm a senior and it's the last time I'll ever do any kind of performance with the band. And honestly, I'm not very good at the clarinet. So really the last time I'll ever play my clarinet. But it should be a lot of fun. And like we hope that there is lots of support for a very meaningful and fun community event. And then on June 1st, we're going to have for the seniors a pre-prom assembly. And we're going to have a speaker coming in to talk to us about a bunch of important topics. And then we're all going to head to Six Flags and we're going to be bussed up there and we're going to have lunch there and spend a whole day and then come back in the evening And a lot of people are really excited about it, and a lot of people are signed up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And then next Thursday night, we're having the senior award ceremony, and Board of Ed members are also invited to that event. And that's a really wonderful night to commemorate seniors who have worked really hard throughout high school. And then the next day, June 3rd, we're going to be doing 8th grade orientation, which is kind of wild. They're the class of 2026, and I am going into college to graduate as part of the class of 2026. It's kind of a little bit scary. And we're working on a new plan to help them make the transition to high school all that much more simple and smooth and seamless. So we've been working with Mr. Gwynn, who's our health teacher, and a lot of the administration and student leadership has been talking a lot lately to try and make this like the best and most impactful event possible. So hopefully everything should go well. We're finishing up planning soon, and it should be a really fun day, but also a really informative and exciting day. And then last but not least, June 4th is our senior prom, and we're all super excited. We're going to Cascades, which is a really beautiful venue, and it should be a really fun night. And it should just be exciting and a great way to wrap up our year. But that's about it.
Can I just ask real quick, when did you say the senior award ceremony is?
I'm pretty sure that's June 2nd, next Thursday evening.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Well, good luck with all your work and those AP exams.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
wrapped up AP exams, but we've got all these UConn exams left, but I guess they're also AP.
Yeah.
We're almost there, the last stretch.
Yeah. No. All right. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Isabel, you'll be with us next board meeting as well, right?
Yeah, I will. And next board meeting, I think we're going to also be meeting the new Board of Ed rep, which should be a fun and exciting time.
And Lucy, you'll be able to join us in 2 weeks as well?
Yes, I will.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is item number 4, superintendent's report. Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Chairman Klaskin. Just a few notes before we get to presentations or discussions we have. As our students shared, we have a lot of end of the year events happening. We have exams scheduled for Daniel Landon's. Weird to see that come out. It's, it just seems like the year has gone by very fast, as we always talk about. As mentioned, National Honor Society is next Thursday at 6 p.m. and then followed by the awards night on June 2nd at 6 p.m. as well. As the board knows, graduation is June 14th. We're really looking forward to that event. And then Polson's promotional ceremony is June 16th during the day. And so I just wanted to make the board aware of all those events. The administration's been working very hard on hiring for open teaching positions. So we had some teaching positions that were on one-year contracts, some retirements to fill, some resignations. And so currently we have 8 open positions right now, and we've hired 7 teachers already this spring. We continue to see some great candidates and have a very thorough process as we look for that. And in some areas we have seen, low number of candidates, but have seen some good candidates come forward. So we're excited about what we have seen so far. Want to give the board a heads up. We expect to have the Chartwells contract. That's our management company for our food service. For next time, we expect to have a 1-year contract for the board to approve for next time. We'll get you that as soon as that's available. Art Sickle's been working on that with food costs increasing. That's one of the discussions they're having, and there may be a need to increase our regular lunches as well. We've increased a la carte items recently, but we may have to increase lunch items as well. And then I just want to make the board aware as well, June 21st will be a regular meeting for the board. At one point it was listed as a workshop because it was the second meeting in the month, but it will be a regular board meeting. So with that said, we'd like to move to 4.1, the Connecticut School Accountability Report. And Gail Dallin-Hitch is gonna work with me on this. We do have a brief PowerPoint we shared with the board ahead of time, just to give you some background. This is something that we've been working very closely with our administrators. You've seen the results of that work in the school development plans and the district development plans we presented to you earlier. This is meant to be a real holistic look at the district, and I think in a lot of ways it does recognize the work of the district from pre-K to grade 12. You'll see that there's more measures that are really geared towards the high school. However, in order to be successful at the high school, in order to have good attendance of students at the high school, in order to have high reading levels, we obviously have to do a lot of work before students get to the high school. So it really is a report that the whole district shares in. There are lots of documents available online at the Connecticut government education site, so we'll give you that information as well, how to access those. If you have the need for further information, you can certainly ask us as well. We expect that we would have a report for the current school year in the fall, late fall. Typically, the state provides it to us. We get the information now, kind of trickling it. We'll get one indicator at a time here and there, and we're able to look at that. And oftentimes we share that information with the board. But in terms of this full report that is used to determine where schools land on the continuum of success, where districts are rated, we don't have that usually until late October or November, and then we would present that to the board. But the information I think that is used is not going to be new to the board, but how some of the calculations, some of the areas may be. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Gail to pick up and we'll work together on the PowerPoint.
Thank you. So the last time I did an overview of the accountability index, it was 2018, 2019. And that was the last active year of the accountability index. For 1920 and 2021, the federal government said that there was no accountability index due to COVID and the lack of availability of the data. So this is the first year that they're popping back into the accountability index from where we were in 2018 and 2019. So there's some important information that I wanted to share with the board in terms of where we were in 2018, 2019, where we are today. I think Dr. Cook gave you an overview of what the state accountability index is. The final index is actually a composite of indicators on a scale of 0 to 100, and I'll just kind of give you an overview of how that looks. And the scores place schools into categories on a complete scale of 1 to 5. However, the categories in scales 1 to 3 are based on values and cut scores. And I'll go a little bit more into how 4s and 5s are determined from the information that I'm going to present to you. So basically, you need to know there's categories 1 through 5. So this is an overview of the Madison Next Generation Accountability Index. So it looks really big and confusing, but I'm going to try to narrow it down for you. As Dr. Cook reported, there is the intent to have a broader spectrum of indicators that schools and districts are based on in terms of how they earn points through their final performance. However, in grades 3 through 8, the majority of those indicators are based on standardized test scores. So you can see, if you take a look right here, oops, I don't know if my picture's gonna work really well. I'll try. But if you take a look at the accountability index, if you look at 1, yeah, it's not gonna work. If you look at 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, 1F, 2A, B, C, D, E, F, or I'm sorry, D, that whole top half is based on standardized test scores. And you'll see the scores broken up into all students and high needs students. The high needs category is defined by any student who's identified with special education needs or are an English language learner or is categorized as a student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch. So those students are grouped together into the category called high needs, and then all students is comprehensive of all students. So the idea of the breakdown between those two is to really ascertain whether or not there's an achievement gap that happens between the high needs subgroup and all students. So if you take a look at 1A and you can follow me across that row, this is the ELA Performance Index, which really means the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So the rate is really derived from a student scale score or composite of student scale score. So you could see 74.9 maybe where that line falls, where the target is 75 for all schools in the state. So Madison earned 49.4 points out of the maximum points of 50. So then you follow it all the way over, and the percentage of points earned are 98.7. And then you can see in the far right column the state average for how many points were earned in that category. So following it down, you can see Math Smarter Balanced. You can see the Science Next Generation Science Standards is or assessment is being given right now. So that is the indicators of E and F. And again, they are doing growth rate as well. So this year is the first year that the science growth rate will be contextualized. The 2018-2019 was the first year, and this would be the second time that's done. In terms of academic growth, so all students are expected to grow year to year as they take the indicators. I equate it to height and weight and birth charts. So you really want to know that all students are growing, and you also want to know the percentage of their target achieved and how many of the students have reached their growth target each year. When you look down towards the progress towards English proficiency, that's in literacy and oral language. That's a test that's given to all of our students who qualify for English language instruction. So they take an actual separate, pretty extensive composite starting in January. So that is the breakdown there. And they are gauged towards their progress as well. Chronic absenteeism is defined by the state, and actually we have a policy on that. And it's defined as any student who's absent more than 10% of the school year. The difference is coming to for this year, a little bit different than next year. That 5 and 6 is college and career readiness. So indicator number 5 is a percentage of students who are taking AP courses, who are also taking 2 courses in the same pathway in CTE departments. That's that career curve. And it has to be the same pathway. So that means that kids can't take one course in business and then take one course in family and consumer science and qualify to get a credit towards that indicator. This year, college and career readiness is also including students who are taking a dual enrollment class, which is indicated by ECE classes, which you just heard our students talking about the ECE exams. So that will count actually for the first time for that indicator 5 and for that indicator 6, that our students taking ECE courses will be counted towards that dual enrollment. And I believe they have to take 2 courses in dual enrollment to get credit in that indicator. So there are some subtleties in every single one of these items and some ways that you qualify or do not qualify. I think the rest of them are pretty self-explanatory. The tricky one too is the physical fitness exam, where you have a participation rate that you must hit to get kind of a bonus qualifier or bump in that one. So you'll see that indicated as well. And then indicator number 3, you'll see a gray box over to the left, is really the participation rate for the students in all students in high needs. And it's reported out in a separate scale because what they're trying to do is to examine whether or not you have an outlier, which would be 1.5 standard deviations outside of that rate. And this, what they're trying to see is whether you compare to state levels or not, and whether or not you have an outlier between what the performance is of all students and the subgroup. That's a lot of information and a lot of bullets. There's about 100 pages of a guide that's available to explain each one and kind of how they're calculated. Again, so where we were in 2018.
Can I just add 2 things?
Yes.
I think it'd be, I just wanted to point out to the board is one thing that the state has valued higher is growth. So if you look at the 2, it's a max points of 100 versus the actual score being a max points of 50. So in terms of the way the state does this calculation, it's more important that we're moving students, so that for a district like for us, that makes it hard because we already have a lot of students kind of at that higher end already. You see, we're kind of hitting that target in ELA performance, but then when you look at growth, we are not maximizing necessarily the points. So that's something we've been looking at, and our new data system will help put some information in teachers' hands to help hopefully help address some of those areas. And then as Gail pointed out, number 11, the physical fitness, one of the reasons why we've struggled a little bit with that is that until recently, you were restricted to testing during the day, and now they've allowed us to test outside of the day, morning. And so we have 10th graders who would be normally taking is the group that they're looking at, but they are not scheduled for physical fitness that year. And so we're able to work with those students and bring them in and have them take a test, even though they aren't scheduled for PE that year or that trimester. So we do expect that the high school would be able to meet that the higher rate as well as the middle school in terms of participation, because they want you at 95%.
And I'm glad you mentioned that about the growth index as well, because another subtlety that changed this year is that they are creating a new baseline for growth. And the new baseline is based on the 2020-2021 performance, which for us in the state of Connecticut went up, and for everybody else it went down. So their baseline is now set from that new year. There was a definite difference between how we handled testing in 2018-2019 to how we handled it in 2020-2021. That accounts for that performance and that growth. I'll go into a little bit more, but it's important to note the new baseline is 2020-2021. So I mentioned before that there were 5 levels, and schools can drop a level for any of the following reasons. If they have a participation rate lower than 95% of any group or subgroup, that drops you a level. If your achievement gap is identified being significantly different than the state average gap in any subgroup area or subject area, you're dropped a level. And if there's a gap in graduation rates, you're dropped a level. That's really important for us when we look at kind of the history of participation rates, and we look at some of the drops that we've had and the reasons for our drops. So you're given an initial level. So I could be a 1, and if I have an outlier achievement gap in my high need subgroup, then I'm going to drop to a 2 in that school rating. So the district's rated, but each and every school is rated as well. It has a final accountability index. So how did this impact Madison in 2018-2019? So you'll see in the middle column, that was the original school categories and assignments that were given to our schools. So Jeffrey was a 1, Ryerson was a 1, Brown was a 3, Polson was a 2, and was a 1. Important to remember is back in 18-19, Jeffrey and Ryerson had K through 4. So they were able to be not only accounted for in their SBAC scores, but also growth, because they had the 3rd to 4th grade cohort, where now they are not going to get growth points. They will just get achievement points as K through 3. So Jeffrey, after penalties, was a 2. They did have an outlier achievement gap. Ryerson was a 1, a school of distinction for high performance because they had high amount of growth. Brown was a 4 because they dropped a level for 3-year growth grade, and I'll explain a little bit more of that, in high needs subgroup and math. So our high needs subgroup and math did not grow at the same rate over a 3-year period as other students in the state. And they were in the bottom 10% of the state. So because that subgroup did not grow at the same rate as the state, they were dropped a level. The same was true for Polson for growth in high needs subgroup ELA. And Daniel Hand was dropped a level for the percentage of high needs students who were participating in the assessments. So those were all the reasons. When we took a look at how we were administering the assessment in 2018, 2019, we did a little action research piece. The philosophy of the district was to really minimize the impact of testing. The testing was given in the very first week of the testing window, by and large, and students didn't have any exposure to the test beyond 8 practice tests. But for students in 3rd and 4th grade, we actually pulled back the testing window. We gave them some exposure to the aspects so they were familiar with the tools, and their growth was tremendous in both 3rd and 4th grade. So we wanted to apply that same methodology in 1920, and COVID hit, and we weren't able to do that. So we have been frozen in these categories for the past couple of years. So 2020, 2021 came along, we were administering the test. We saw good growth in our students and did really well, but it didn't count towards these indicators. So the way that the testing is conducted and how they identify is they look at 3 years of information to identify new focus schools or new focus areas. So I could be identified as a focus school for high needs math, ELA, for science, for all students, for subgroup students, over 3 years of information. But if you are a focus school, you already have the 3 years and you need 2 consecutive years of growth and have over 95% participation for all groups in order to exit focus school status. So we have 2 schools that we really want to, end our focus school status. We want to apply that new methodology of exposing the kids, moving back the window, which we did this year. But the reality is we didn't have any years before this count. So when you take a look at this last chart, and I hope I'm making sense to everyone, and you take a look at the bands of 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and you look at the performance in 2020, 2021, you can see that our student growth was significantly higher for that students with high needs subgroup by grade level. So you can see all the way down the chart, when we just moved back the testing window and exposed the kids, they did had very different performance by and large. However, where there's pink, you could see the average for 4th, 5th, and 6th, and the school is judged as a whole, not as a class. So you really need to see your average at Brown reach above the state threshold. So in 2017, 2018, it did not. In 2018, 2019, the average for Brown, was up in ELA, so we weren't identified as a focus school for ELA. However, in math, when you look at the right-hand side, you see 2 pink columns in a row. That was the time period where we weren't doing anything to expose the kids. But as soon as we exposed the kids to math in 2020, 2021, they were not pink according to, or would not be according to history. However, that year does not count. So for Brown School will continue to be a focus school, no matter how the achievement of the high needs subgroup goes in this year. We don't have any credit years for Brown School. In contrast to that, down at the bottom of the chart, you'll see Polson's performance. And where the chart is white or vacant in grade 6, that's because those students were at the other school. They were at Brown School. But when we redistricted and reconfigured, all of those numbers now come into play. So regardless where that subgroup was or where they were at the time of identification, they are now part of the Polson School. So Polson was flagged for high need subgroup performance in the ELA in 2017-2018. And you will see that in 2018-2019, they received 1 year of credit for not being in that threshold. So if they get another year of credit in this tested year, then they will be exited as a high needs as a focus school off that list.
And the 2 years of growth have to be consecutive?
They do, 2 consecutive years. So you can also see though that based on our data from 2020, 2021, we would have no new identification based in any category. But again, bad news, good news, that was our highest growth year. So now that's the reset, that's the new baseline, is 2020, 2021.
So they won't count it as a credit, but they count it as your baseline.
Correct.
And when does the state threshold for 2021 get identified?
It won't get
because
posted
they're not-
because they said they're not counting
It
it.
doesn't count at all, so it doesn't-
Yeah,
so we can just sort of make generalizations based on previous year's thresholds, but
exactly.
it makes it even more complicated.
It does, I have to say that I've learned a lot about it
Yeah.
over the years. And I mistakenly thought it was the cohort, thinking then that the cohort would be the identifier, and that's where you need to see the growth, but it's not, it's the school that's named, not the cohort, so that the name stays with the school.
So what happens, because we're hitting a reset for Polson, right? So we now have to go 2 consecutive years.
Well, Polson has 1 year of credit because the last year they counted was 2018, 2019, we got a credit year.
So
So
they're
if we get
counting
credit this
22.
year,
Yeah,
then we're exited as a focus.
But when we build a new school,
yeah, that's.
go back to what
Yeah.
happens.
It's
there.
so
Start it all over.
so yeah, that's interesting because now when you look at the reconfigurations, I was thinking the same thing you guys are. Ryerson and Jeffrey School now don't have growth points, right? They're just tested for grade 3. So whatever grade 3 performs that's what their indicator is by and large. So then when they become a K through 5, they're going to have 3, 4, 5. That will be part of their configuration. They will still, to make it more complicated, they classify schools, that will still classify as an elementary school. And elementary schools have greater growth to make than middle schools. Middle schools actually have less growth to make.
And then to go back to what you were talking about with the previous chart, you said that they're resetting the scores that determine growth, right? But we as a district were performing better than the majority of the state. So does that correlate to us not receiving potentially as many growth points?
That could be potentially disadvantage for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because most districts went down, we went up.
Right.
Yeah. If they're not counting the data, why do they count it towards?
I don't know. I was wondering whether or not they would just recalibrate everything all over again and start at 0, but that's not the case. I think the intent would be that all students get back on the same trajectory as before COVID, right? That they're making all the benchmarks that they would make in a typical year with typical conditions.
But it just seems that we are, because we're potentially at a disadvantage, because we did do well during COVID, we could potentially be dinged and marked as a district that is not performing to standards because of the fact that we overperform.
Yeah, or we
We're
could
not
get,
meeting our growth.
we get
That's
less
where we
points in that accountability, but you don't know, we could get more points in something else and, so, like if you were playing just a statistics game and if you knew this like a year ago, you'd say, don't worry about it, let's keep it the way it was and let's not worry about it, but we really wanted to see if just exposing the kids would actually benefit, those scores, and it did.
And it did, so.
So, but yeah, a year back from now, if I knew with anyone.
You wouldn't do it.
We wouldn't do it, I know. Frank knows me, I wouldn't do it anyway.
But a couple things, this was based on the early years of the introduction of the SBAC, right?
Mhm.
First of all,
Yeah.
when everybody was tanking, and we did better than most.
We had several years of, I would say, fair representation in it. Could we have done better if we were doing what other districts were doing and exposed the kids? Absolutely. I don't doubt that. It's true in the SAT, it's true in the SBAC. Any standardized instrument, if you're exposing kids to, especially this
How
one,
it
it's really tricky to take on
Yeah.
computer and it has a lot of weird tools. So even doing some of the tools that were available to us, there were still new tools when the kids took the test, so.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of assessment. In the first year that it was administered, we actually requested that our third grader have a paper pencil test. And because we thought that was more developmentally appropriate, but the state didn't provide it, they said they couldn't, so. But it is different.
And the second feature that I noticed that we have covered in the past is that this method of quantifying schools also includes the special ed students along with the typical students, and you get like a composite score.
Right, that's the all students, and then the students with high needs, again, is students who are identified with special education needs, free and reduced lunch, and English language learners, they're a separate category. But the intent is that you want to see them growing the same as all students, so you're looking to see if there's an achievement gap. The interesting thing too about our numbers with declining enrollment, like any statistics, the smaller your student body gets,
The sample size.
the more like 2 kids' performance makes a difference in the overall.
They don't adjust for variability on that, do they?
No, they don't. So, so yeah, if we're a huge
Complex as they
district
make it,
and we
they do
have
that.
400 kids in a class, the statistics play out very differently than class size of 121.
Sounds like a good AP stats project or something.
Isn't it?
So where, this year didn't count, right?
No,
Or this past year because of COVID last year. What steps are we taking to continue to meet our newly higher growth standard?
yeah, so how did we treat it this year, you're saying?
Yeah.
So we're like finishing the science testing right now. We approached it the same way that we did last year. So pretty much we have given, there's some interim assessment blocks, they're called IEPs. And like that. I know you have a new acronym, Diane. Wanted to add one. So they're smaller snippets of like little practice indicators. So we have had several teams take a look at those and embed them where they make sense for kids to practice in the right units. So we're trying not to crush kids with like, here's 5 days of prep before the test, but we're dropping those little moments in periodically. They're usually like 6 to 8 questions, they're really small, but they do expose the kids to the types of questioning and to some of the tools that they'll be exposed to. And then teachers have been examining that information and seeing how it manages between the information that we've already gathered, and we do some reteaching or we teach more about the tools that we're using. There's no more than, we made kind of a rule of thumb of no more than 5 throughout the school year. So we're still being pretty moderate. You could go crazy because there's just so many of them. How many of them are there now?
Oh, like 15, 16. Yeah.
I think many, so we're trying to just kind of a dabble do, and, see what that yields.
Another
And
thing to keep in mind, I'm sorry to interrupt, but 2021 was a very interrupted school year. If you think about it, we started hybrid, we didn't get to high school until March, and we had lots of dual learning with students on computers. And so I think that this year should be better based on a full year experience and students having the more experience taking the test and things like that, because
I think the teachers have more experience
Right,
too, like
right.
our teachers had no experience, they really didn't. They had no idea what an IEP was, so this is all new for them. The other piece is that, I think we're all aware that kids are going through some tough times, and you don't want to compromise somebody who's fragile to feel more pressure, so we're trying to do the balance, and respect that.
So maybe we'll all kind of even it.
Right now, I
Next year.
can just tell you, it's been administered, I think we're like, this is 1% under our target rate for participation in the science testing at the high school. And that's a hard one to move the needle on. 1% is a very small number of kids, but we've been trying to do makeups for a long time, and we're 94%.
Well, and that's part of the problem is that, especially when the SBAC first came out, there was a big push in this district under former administration. And the board, was under a different philosophy of, well, here's what we think about the SBAC. And we were kind of sympathetic to parents who just said, I don't want my kid taking it. And we didn't make a concerted effort like some districts did to say, take the exam, participate. And we got dinged hard as a result because there's a participation aspect to this formula.
And there's definitely kind of a messaging that goes out with a large group of kids.
Yeah. And I would say it's still fair to characterize the board as being concerned with true education more than being subservient to standardized testing. But within the realm of reason.
Yeah.
So we still have to
So I
participate.
just wanted to make sure that you knew what I know right now about kind of the exit criteria and just how it was determined and what's changed for this year versus other years. So, we have some good news in there too. The ECE courses, we have 17 ECE courses. We are
that's
a really good participation rate in ECE. So, that
Top 10
might
in
give
the
us.
state.
Yeah, we're definitely up there. So that was great news for us that they're counting that. So we'll take that, right?
Yeah.
And we'll take, the fact that we did so well in a year that was so disruptive in 2020, 2021, I think that's great too, so.
And that was a credit to your leadership too.
Thank you. I don't know, I think it's a credit to my teachers who work so hard and, we're incredible. Yeah, we have a lot of great people in this district to make things happen, so.
Have stuff going on.
Thank you. It's
Thank
been-
you.
Yeah, it's been a slog with this, but
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
I appreciate you making this understandable to Gail. I know that's.
It's so hard to understand, really, 100 pages.
I saw that chart.
It
Oh
is,
my God.
I know.
Yes.
Believe me, I saw it a million
Understand.
times.
Sorry.
I just made it colors, pink's bad. Anything else good, pink's bad.
I appreciate that.
And so the next item, 4.2, is not a presentation, but just an update. As the board is aware, we received higher enrollment projections for a high of 8 years out, and we are able to still adjust our application to the state for reimbursement that will go in next month. And so it's good news in that respect, is that we'll increase our reimbursement amount, hopefully. And we were looking at through the ed specs to ask for a building to be designed with 4 additional classrooms. And so That is the ed specs that we're asking the board to approve. The board had done quite a bit of work on the previous ed specs. Those are really the only changes in this, is that we're adding one classroom in grades 1 through 2 and 3 classrooms in grades 3 through 5. So we're really trying to maximize the classroom spaces in our building. It's not uncommon for districts to have to do this, throughout during the building process, but we're fortunate that we're finding this out. So we're really good. For the anticipated enrollment in the building basically goes from 601 to 640, 8 years out, I think, again. So that's where
So we have to vote on.
yes, so there is an action item later on in the agenda.
That's what I thought. And
Really important too is that to approve the minutes 2 weeks from now, because it's the approved minutes that we're going to see. So,
Yeah. So real quick, I hate that because I know we only have 2 weeks to get this done. Was it last night? Yeah, last night there was a school building committee meeting where there was a debate among the committee members as to whether to view our elementary educational specifications for the new school kind of directly as they were, which is very kind of very typically dry specs, right? Very functional, a section for each thing, and we say, here's the number of things we need, here's the types of things we need. What we did not take the opportunity to do in our elementary educational specifications for the new school is to provide any kind of color commentary that would be more qualitative. Other than, as one of the board members pointed out, and thankfully the other ones agreed, is by adding our vision and mission statement at the beginning, they were able to pick up on the fact that we we favor our students learning to be becoming joyful lifelong learners. And so from that, they extrapolated to include in the RFP for the architect that's going out, additional information about our town that will help to get the architects that we've identified. There's I think 4, the final set of architects that they've narrowed it to give them an opportunity to kind of give some qualitative and creative and evidence-based architectural responses instead of just the dry, this many buildings, this many rooms, this many bathrooms, this many toilets. So I don't think we need to do anything now to change this as a document because they were able to kind of extrapolate from our mission, but for future reference, 20 years from now when we're looking to build another school, I would recommend that, Madison Board of Ed consider adding some qualitative data and not just the facts.
You had given some examples to me of those discussions that was around the line of utilizing natural light as much as possible in the classrooms and making that bright area. I think you gave me some other examples.
And age appropriate kind of evidence-based, age appropriate design. Like, for example, nowadays in kindergarten classes especially, they have a lot of like furniture and play area that is convertible, movable, and dynamic, so that the kids aren't stuck in a very typical square box
I think
every
it says
day.
that though,
Yeah,
in
well,
this, it says flexible seating, desks, tables to accommodate number of students.
yeah, no, that's one example that maybe not a good example, but there's a whole, I think there was a debate between 2 different architects on the committee as to, what
Whether
evidence-based
specific enough.
what evidence-based architecture is and whether we intended as a board for that to be included or not. I would think we probably did, especially if you learned from the interview process for the Brown School renovation, what evidence-based architecture is. So we kind of gave a little bit of input that helped sway it in that direction. So
I
I
thought
think
that
we'll
sort of
be good.
thing came later in the process though.
No, they have to build it into the design early on and budget for it. So
Was there any discussion as to, you know, with the cost of materials and the lengthy time that things are going to become available? Was any of that discussed at the
no, because this was the purpose of this meeting was just whether to adopt like a statement and an invitation to the architects in the RFP, like, hey, the district is, you know, and the board, whatever, and the school building committee are considering this. What do you say about it? So it's inviting them to give a proposal. There's still going to be downward pressure on their pricing because it's an RFP process. So,
How long will you,
and they know what the budget is for the project.
and how long will it take to narrow down those four architects, you say?
Yeah, they're meeting on the 13th and the 15th, I believe, of June. 2 architects a day that they're interviewing, and then after the 4th one on the 15th, they're gonna discuss and I guess winnow down to the winner.
So I have a quick question regarding the specs. So just to summarize, the only actual changes would be on page 4, the total program area goes from 58,895 to 62,505, and then design enrollment is now 640 from 601. So when we were first talking about the design specs, he was saying that built into the design would be the ability to expand if we have a larger projection of enrollment. So now that this is increased from 601 to 640, do we still have the flexibility to increase further in case of future larger enrollment?
Yes, so this is based on this, the 640. If we started to adjust that, if we look at special ed rooms that could become, you know, a classroom or things like that, we always would look for that flexibility.
So there is enough
Yes.
flexibility in it. Okay. And then the other changes you said was that in the early elementary, grade 1 and 2, we went from 9 rooms to 10, and intermediate grades 3 to 5 were going from 11 to 14. So the total square footage is from 39,990 to 43,600. So that's what we are.
For that area, yes, yep.
It's just that square footage and the number of students.
Right.
And that's all we're really voting out to change.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. But it was interesting to see that debate, you know, occur live, and you know, we felt, I think, Galen and Dr. Cook and I kind of felt it was a good result. So you're,
So thank you. Yeah.
thank you. Any board member comments this evening? Once, twice. Okay. Audience response to information presented. Do we have no one in the peanut gallery here? Anyone online? Thank you, Wendy. Go ahead.
Frank ordered that, so.
All right. So our Board of Selectmen liaison, Scott Murphy, was unable to be here this evening due to a family commitment. He asked that we apologize on his behalf, and he will be back at the next meeting. So we will skip to number 8, Board Committee Liaison Updates, starting with Curriculum and Student Development. Steve.
We did not meet. Our next meeting is, I believe, June 7th.
Facilities, Emily.
We have also not met since our last meeting. We're also meeting June 7th at 4:30 at the high school. And that's when we'll have the folks work on the Brown School improvements there, if anyone's interested.
Great, and note that early time because we're accommodating the retirement ceremony that evening. This will all take place at the high school. The committee meetings that night will be in the high school library, and the ceremony will be in the senior bridge
At 6:30.
at 6:30. Yes, thank you. Finance Committee, Galen.
All right, thank you. The Finance Committee met tonight. We called the meeting to order at 5:37. Dr. Cook, Stacy Novitz were present, as was Chairman Seth. All three members, Emily, Diane, and I were present. Our discussion centered on the following topics: the results of the budget referendum, an update on year-end funds, end of year line item transfers, and a discussion concerning funds returned to the town. So first, I'd like to note that we're grateful to the voters, PTOs, the administration, and other volunteers for the successful passing of the budget referendum, both for the town and the district. Turnout was, I think, about 11%, which is low end of normal, but we also discussed the need to continue good efforts to communicate the issues. The voting went pretty smoothly at Brown and Polson. In the future, we'd like to keep the schools open during the voting, and we'll deal with logistical traffic and other issues to do that. Second, Stacy updated the committee on the end of year funds and line item transfers. And there's a handout for that, but I'll summarize it. The net projected year-end balance is approximately $106,000. The breakdown on the positive side of the ledger is for available funds of about $261,000. And this includes positive changes to human resources, salaries, accounts, school choice, FICA, and about $94,000 total in the buildings. These numbers will be finalized towards the year end. On the negative side of the ledger, well, negative is relatively speaking, the requested line item totals are requests for about $155,000. And these would be for things like tuition typicals, special education, hand, art, easel, some health office equipment, things like that. So these requests for line item transfers will be brought up for a vote at our next full board meeting on June 7th. Once again, I'd like to commend Stacy Novitz on her conservative budgeting, her accuracy in helping narrow the gap between the projected and actual, and everybody's skill of the administration in managing to produce a positive balance in the context of a $60 million annual budget. Which brings us to the next agenda item, which was a discussion of the rationale for returning unused funds to the town at the end of every fiscal year. And first, we noted that the 7-year average is about $300,000 returned to the town annually. And this represents about 0.5% of the district's budget. So it's within a fairly narrow tolerance. Second, the reason that we usually have an excess of 0.5% is that we budget conservatively to avoid shortfalls. And we also need the flexibility to account for the uncertainty of special education, healthcare costs, transfer students, et cetera. And the timing and extent of these expenses can be unpredictable. So we'd like to have the flexibility for that. During the course of the discussion, a couple other observations were made. First, the district's healthcare costs are self-funded. And secondly, we as a district do not plan for or depend on the state's educational cost savings. Instead, that amount, which is about $400,000, goes to the town. And Seth is a great resource for this. He had a hand in its creation. Over the years, we've built up a special education reserve fund to the tune of about $350,000 this year. It's never used to offset the budget, and it's solely intended for use in emergencies. And some unused funds go to replenish this special education reserve fund each year. There were no public questions. The meeting was adjourned at 6:02, and the next committee meeting will be on June 21st. End of report.
Any questions? Thank
I
you.
just want to
Oh,
kind of
go
add
ahead.
one quick thing. I was just doing the math for the return of funds to the town. The average is, you mentioned, that's 350,000, but we had a big return of COVID savings, which I do want to just acknowledge,
Yeah.
sort of threw our average off a little bit. Typically, it was, 400,000, 300,000, 130,000, 140,000. COVID year one, 670,000.
So probably.
So
closer
the
to
average is
40.
more like 242
240, yeah.
if you
Yeah.
remove that COVID anomaly. So that
Yeah.
just to acknowledge that
Yeah.
it's an even smaller,
Yeah, thank you.
number.
Yeah, that's a great catch.
so.
Thank you. Thank you both. Personnel Committee, Maureen.
These negotiations are ongoing.
I knew you were gonna say
Just let's have a little recording.
That's right, a little tape, full tape.
Yeah.
Sign.
Policy Committee, Diane.
Policy committee met tonight. We discussed a number of policies to rescind and replace. I know you missed them, past couple of meetings, so we're gonna have lots on the agenda next meeting. Basically, we didn't move forward as many policies as we had on our agenda. We ran out of time. So we did not get a chance to discuss the school calendar that was on our agenda, so that will be moved to the next agenda. And we will be revisiting several of these policies after some more investigation and discussion.
Any questions? Thank you, Diane. Learn Liaison, Mary Ann.
We met last Thursday morning, May 12th. Basically went over their budget and how we will be voting on that. They gave us a packet to go over it. They talked about new hires within their, the magnet schools. Their policies were, their food services, they had a change in that policy, a change for athletic coaches. And then they presented the new officers and we will vote in the June meeting for that. And basically, that's it.
Any questions? Thank you, Mary Ann. The Ad Hoc Town American Rescue Plan Funding Committee, Emily.
Yes, we met last week. We are planning for a public forum scheduled for June 8th. The location is to be determined, but we've been planning for that, basically announcing to the town the funds that are available, the application process. So mark your calendars for June 8th and continue to review any proposals that have come in yet and not yet been funded. So stay tuned.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. The Town Ad Hoc Marijuana Advisory Committee, Mary Ann.
We haven't met, and I don't have a date, but I'm gonna get in touch with Bruce Wilson and find out what's going on. And I'll report back next week. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? No? All right, let's move on to action item number 9. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the May 10th, 2022 Board of Ed meeting. Jen, second by Emily. Any discussion for? Okay.
Yes, I made a mistake in my report last time. So we need to make a slight amendment. Under the Finance Committee, it says the committee has not met. Next meeting is June 7th. It was actually today, May 24th. So that's a slight change.
All right, do we have a motion to adopt that amendment? So moved, Jen, and second by Mary Ann. Any discussion on the amended version?
Yeah, culpa.
All right, all in favor of the slightly amended version of the May 10th Board of Ed meeting minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? 1. So we have 7, 1, and 7.
One absent. Okay, thank you. Action item number 10, I need a motion to approve the STEAM curriculum modules for grades 4 and 5. And Steve, so move.
And second,
Steve, Jen. Any discussion?
I just wanted to say, I was looking at these earlier, unit 1 for grade 4, professional slug ball league. I just love looking at these descriptions, and it's so creative and engaging for this group. I think it's super.
Yeah.
It's Mr. Ginsburg.
Yeah, I mean, he's found, it's,
Phenomenal.
I know,
And
see it,
firmly in line with that value of finding joy. in
oh,
learning.
I just, they will then use the eyeballs they created to help manufacture the body of a robotic slug. It's just, what more could you want? I just think it's really super.
Creative beastie friend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my beastie, yeah,
What else, you know,
yeah, I love it.
after they make the Funko Pop.
I know, there's so many fun things and so many pieces of technology to bring together.
Right? It gets the kids so excited. I love it. It's great.
It's-
When you go back in time, it takes science all over again.
Yeah, I love it.
Send me up.
All right, so we've had discussion. All in favor of adopting the STEAM curriculum modules for grades 4 and 5? Raise your hand, aye. All opposed? Nay. Any abstentions? It's, 8, carries 8. Thank you. Action item 11, motion to approve the educational specifications dated May 11th, 2022. And that's as described by the superintendent during his superintendent's report. Do I have a motion to approve those as amended?
Second.
Galen, second from Diane. Any discussion, further discussion?
Actually, I do have a question
Yes.
that I just would like to be posed. So under the science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics STEAM lab, I just wonder why there was no iWatch station there. There's one in the art room, but there's not one in the STEAM room.
Steam room. Someone's gonna think
Not a
we're building
sign.
a. Yeah.
STEAM lab, I should say.
I don't know if it's necessary because of the use of equipment is different. In the art room, we have the kiln, which is always hazardous area. But I can
Usually
certainly,
in science, and I know it's lower level science, but usually science rooms have
Yeah,
iWatch.
I think, and we can find out and get back, but I think that the lab does not include chemical use, right?
That's
It's
what I
just, yeah,
It's like what you saw Mr. Ginsburg present, it was
Yeah.
really. kind
It's
of
for
those types of
chemicals.
things, yeah.
it would be the same as why kids taking science in grades K through 5 don't have iWatch because they have stations. We don't have them in every classroom.
Okay.
We do have them at Polson, we do have them.
And
at
OSHA would, that would look down.
Specification is needed.
I don't know, they do advanced things now. You never know. That sounds great, those slugs could get scary.
Yeah.
It's really, it's more programming in the science end of it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, motion to approve the educational specifications as amended dated May 11th, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries 8-0. Any old business? Any recommendations or requests for future agenda items? The meetings and dates of importance are attached to your packet. And now we need to, I need a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of conducting the evaluation of the superintendent. When that would be going into executive session with the superintendent, which we need to note for the record. So we have a motion from Diane, second from Maureen. All in favor of entering executive session?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, carries 8-0. We will now enter executive session. Ready? Thank you. So we just met in an executive session and I need a motion to come out of executive session. Diane, seconded by Jen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of coming out of executive session into regular session, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. All right, we have nothing to put on the record as a result of our executive session, so I could use a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved, that's Maureen and Diane, second.
Well, Mary
Adjourn.
Ann, get it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, 8-0. Motion carries. 8-0. We are adjourned.